Each news time, information is power. Be current. The news headline: Nigeria, all slowly becoming Arewa Nestan with silent Buhari in charge, Bishop Kuka says. President Muhammadu Buhari's foremost critic, Bishop Matthew Kuka, has described as worrisome the present administration's silence in the wake of many evils going on in the nation. And Kuka, who is the Roman Catholic Bishop of Sokoto Diocese, warned northerners that the country is slowly degenerating to Arewanistan, with all the killings going on in the region. At about this time last year, when I raised the alarm about the perilous state of affairs in the northern Nigeria, all kinds of accusations were leveled against me, especially by my northern brethren. When the Catholic bishop protested openly against the killings of our people in March 2020, we were accused of acting against the government, with religious motives being imputed to our noble intention. Now we are fully in grip of evil. Today, a feeling of vindication only saddens me as I have watched the North breaking into a cacophony of quarrelsome blame games over our tragic situation. A catalogue of unprecedented cruelty has been unleashed on innocent citizens across the northern states. Kuka, who said all this in his Christmas sermon titled A Nation Still in Search of Truth and Vindication, Kuka called on President Muhammadu Buhari to arise and address these issues. Tales and promises about planned rescues have since deteriorated into mere whispers. Nothing expresses the powerlessness of the families like the silence of states at the federal level. Today, after over 7 years, our over 100 Chibok girls are still marooned in the ocean of uncertainty. And this has been one of the reasons why Bishop Matthew Kuka seems to be a very ardent critic of President Muhammadu Buhari's regime, because the evil of the country is far more annoying and disgusting to any rational citizen. The political solution to the unconditional release of my clients, as I had before then resolved not to constitute myself an impediment to the exploration of any such political solution. I welcomed the idea. Consequently, I was constrained to substitute the name of one of the persons already scheduled for the visit for the name of Orji Uzor Kalu. I then proceeded to submit a fresh list containing the name of the latter to the relevant authorities on or before 12 p.m. of the aforementioned date. When the team of lawyers who were scheduled to visit my clients arrived at the reception hall of the headquarters of the Department of State Security DSS on or before 1:55 p.m. of the aforementioned date, they were informed that Orji Uzor Kalu, whose name appeared on the list at the 11th hour, would not be allowed to see Onyedo Mazenamde Kanu. The reason for this decision was clear, as the name of Orji Uzor Kalu was merely submitted on the day of the intended visit, and not earlier, as was the practice. He could not, without permission or clearance from superior authority, be granted access to visit my client in detention of the DSS. Orji Kalu's hypocritical pretensions were worsened by the fact that he is a politician and a willy one at that, and he is not related to Onyedo Mazenamde Kanu either by affinity or consanguinity. This position taken by the detaining authority did not come as a surprise or as I thought. Long before 29th of November 2021, the DSS consistently and variously denied certain persons of sundry political persuasions and proven elder statesmen access to Onyedo Mazenamde Kanu in the DSS custody. A case in point is that Dr. Chukwuemeka Ezeife, former governor of Anambra State. The inclusion of the name of Orji Uzor Kalu at the 11th hour in the fresh list submitted to the DSS on the day of the intended visit had the effect of temporarily stultifying the access operatives of the DSS could easily have afforded the lawyers, so I thought honestly. But there was more to it. The lawyers were kept waiting till or about 3:20 p.m. of that day, when they finally cleared to enter the detention facility. At first, I thought this delay to be inexplicable and unreasonable, but with insight, I concluded that the delay was deliberate. It was occasioned by the fact that Orji Uzor Kalu had earlier arrived at DSS facility and had gone to visit Onyedo Mazenamde Kanu. At the time, the lawyers were literally forced to wait for a pretended reason. I then became convinced that the objection that was taken at the inclusion of the name of Orji Uzor Kalu at the 11th hour in the list of persons scheduled for the visit was a ruse, a smokescreen, and a deceptive ploy, ingeniously but mischievously contrived to hoodwink us. It had that temporary effect. The pretended reason was designed to keep us waiting while Orji Uzor Kalu had his interaction with Onyedu. The delay of about 2 hours was clearly unjustified. Orji Uzor Kalu, whose name was on the list of the visitors that was submitted and whose name was deceptively objected to by operatives of the DSS, had earlier arrived at the DSS facility and had, in a manner that was extremely surreptitious, gained access to Onyedu Mazi Nnamdi Kanu in custody. Lawyers that congregated for the visit stared with open mouth when they gained access to Onyedu Mazi Nnamdi Kanu and were informed that Orji Uzor Kalu had earlier visited him that day. I must note that DSS operatives at the reception hall were not let in on the surreptitious access that was granted to Orji Uzor Kalu. They did not know when the latter arrived at the facility and when he stole in to see Onyedu. It is for Orji Uzor Kalu to explain honestly how he gained access to Onyedu. If Orji Kalu did not go through the proper channel, which starts from the reception upon the submission of a list containing the names of already scheduled visitors, how then did he gain access to Onyedu Mazi Nnamdi Kanu? Why were the extant protocols not followed? We hereby invite the relevant authorities of the Department of State Security Service to investigate this. Further, Onyedu Mazi Nnamdi Kanu was not informed beforehand that Orji Uzor Kalu was at the facility to see him. The information that was given to him, which he conveyed to me, was to the effect that an important personality was at the facility to see him. The identity of the so-called important facility was not disclosed to him. This is deceptive and a breach of the protocol of the DSS. If the motive for surreptitiously embarking on a visit to Onyedu is pristine, salutary and genuine, why did Orji Uzor Kalu knowingly breach the DSS protocol? Why did he steal in to see Onyedu? Why did he not leave any trace of his identity at the reception hall? If he had no ill motives, why did he conceal his identity from Onyedu Mazi Nnamdi Kanu before he had access to him? And why was he aided in process by deceptive DSS operatives? And these are the accusations made against Orji Uzor Kalu. Having said that, if he had genuine intentions, then why was the deliberation at his visit to Onyedu conducted in the presence of some persons and not necessarily opposed to be present at such visits? Orji Uzor Kalu is hereby challenged to explain to the whole world what informed the question he asked Onyedu during his visit as to why he did not stay back at Afaraoku during the bloody invasion of the homestead of Onyedu Mazi Nnamdi Kanu on the 14th of September 2017. Therefore, the barrister says that he must remind the public that 2023 is around the corner and the desperate politicians are just trying to look for perpetual slaves to use for their